Hello everyone. Today we are going to be discussing the oral exam for Spanish, CSEC. Now, as you know, this is paper 3 and it's actually the first exam that you do when it comes to Spanish. I'm going to give you some tips and we're also going to go through some sample questions and responses. All right, so let's get into it. Of course, I always have to give credit to Bing Images because that's the source from which I obtained the photo. And naturally, we're talking about oral, so it would be fitting to use a picture of two people having a discussion because in the exam, it will be you and the examiner. All right, general tips. You know, of course, you have a reading passage, right? And of course, these tips are going to apply to different parts of the oral exam, and you will know which part I'm speaking about, right? So obviously, the first tip is geared towards the reading passage. So do not read too quickly. Read at a pace which allows you to feel comfortable. Right. Yes, you have to be fluent, but you don't need to read as though it's a race. No. Take your time. Make sure you pronounce every single sound and that you can be heard. Because if you're reading too quickly and the examiner cannot hear you, then that's a problem. Okay? So just read at a pace that allows you to feel comfortable. Another tip when it comes to the reading passage. If you make a mistake while you are reading, you can correct yourself. Do not be afraid to return to a previous word. Yes, you can correct yourself. If you mispronounce a word or omit a word or what have you, you can go back and correct yourself. As long as it's not like you're going back to a paragraph before to correct yourself. No, right? But you can correct yourself. And this could apply as well to the responses that you would give. If you make a mistake, whether that's a pronunciation, whether that's a grammatical error, what have you, you can correct yourself. So don't be afraid to go back and correct yourself if it is necessary. 3, make sure your responses to these situations are concise and logical. Right. So yeah, obviously now we've moved on to the situations. So make sure that your responses are concise and logical. Exactly. Just get to the point and make sure that they make sense because you don't want them to be too long. Because like I always say, when you try to be extravagant, you open up yourself to making mistakes and you don't want to be losing marks like that. Okay? 4, make sure to answer questions completely. Leave minimal room for follow-ups, and this would more be geared towards the guided conversation. So you know that you're going to have questions based on certain topics, right? And you want to leave minimum room for follow-up. So if you're asked a question and that's a question, and you know that that's a question that the examiner could follow up by asking you por qué, then give your answer and give a reason, right? So be proactive, right? So don't even allow them to ask you por qué. Of course, sometimes they may ask you por qué before you even proceed to give a reason, right? But at the same time, if it's a question that you know the examiner may, or there's a very good chance that the examiner will follow up, then give a justification or an explanation, right? And the last point, and this is very important, the truth is irrelevant. I know that sounds crazy to say, but we're not in law. We're in Spanish. We are in an oral exam. Nobody's going to check your records to call your parents or whatnot to find out if you're telling the truth. Nobody cares. Okay. What is important is that your answer is expressed well and it makes sense. As long as your answer is expressed well and makes sense, you are going to be awarded full credit. So if the examiner were to ask you, ¿a qué se dedica tu padre? Right? Basically what your father does for a living, right? And you don't know how, and you cannot, and his actual position, you do not know how to express that in Spanish. Pick something that you know, right? Pick something that you know. If the only thing you know is that, if the only profession you know in Spanish is pilot, well, say that mi padre es piloto. The examiner is not going to check and call your parents and say, yo, are you a pilot? No, they don't care. All they care about is that you express yourself well and that your answers make sense. So always bear that in mind, right? All right. So we're going to move on to some sample questions and responses when it comes to these situations. Now, recently this has not been included in the oral exam, but I've been informed that they will be continuing this from 2024 and onwards, right? But recently, in the last 2 years or so, they haven't had this as part of the exam. So of course, if this is something that they're going to continue using in the future, then it is important that I go through it here today. So these are sample situations, all right? So usually you get a part A and a part B. All right, so let's see how you will respond to these situations. 1, you witness the school bully steal your cousin's bike. A, what advice do you give your cousin? Okay, so I would say something like, deberías avisar a la directora del robo, right? So deberías avisar a la directora del robo, right? So that's basically saying you should inform the principal of the robbery. And what do you offer to do? Okay, I could say voy a ayudarte con la denuncia, right? Because I am the one who witnessed the event, right? So that would translate to mean to say I am going to help you with the report or the complaint, denuncia. So voy a ayudarte con la denuncia. 2, you are playing cricket in your yard when you hit a ball that breaks your neighbor's window. A, what does he or she say you have to do? Okay, so he could say, tienes que pagar los arreglos. So you have to pay for the repairs. Tienes que pagar los arreglos. And what do you reply? Sí, por supuesto. I mean, I'm the one who damaged the window, so my response could be simple. Sí, por supuesto. 3, you are driving with your family and pass 2 badly smashed cars. You recognize one of the cars as that of your friend's father. A, what do you ask your father to do? So of course you have to ask a question. So a good question would be, ¿puedes parar el coche? Can you stop the car? ¿Puedes parar el coche? And B, what does your father say in response? C, por supuesto. That could work. That would suffice. 4, you are worried because your pet cat has not come home for 2 days. What do you ask your neighbor? So the word for cat, of course, is gato. So you have to ask a question. Has visto, so A would be, has visto a mi gato? Have you seen my cat? And we use the personal in Spanish with pets as well. B, what does he or she promise to do? Okay, so I could say that prometo ayudarte con la búsqueda. So I promise to help you with the search, right? 5, you arrive home with your clothes wet and covered with mud. A, what does your mother say to you? Okay, so if you are covered in mud and you're dirty, she could say something like, Dios mío, qué sucia. So Dios mío would mean, oh my God, or my God. And que sucia would be an expression we would use to mean like how dirty, right? When we expressing, so que plus an adjective would translate in English to be like how, whatever the quality is. So how dirty. And you're talking about clothes, which is ropa. So que sucia. It's like she's disgusted. And B, what does she ask you to do? So this is a question. So I would say, ¿puedes poner la ropa en la lavadora? So can you put or place the clothes in the washing machine? Mm-hmm. All right. All right, so another example here of some situations. So 1, your favorite teacher is leaving the school to work elsewhere. A, what do you say to him or her? Okay, so if they're leaving, what would you tell them? I would say, adios, le echaré de menos, so I will miss you, right? And I use the le because I use the usted form because you usually look at a teacher as a person of authority and it's a sign of respect, so I use usted. And what do you ask him or her to do? So I said B, so I was saying B, puede quedarse, right? Puede quedarse, so B, yes. What do you ask him or her to do? Puede quedarse, so can you stay? Right. And because once again, it's your favorite teacher. So naturally you would want them to stay. 2, your brother's getting married. A, what do you tell him on hearing the news? What do you tell him on hearing the news? Enhorabuena, which means congratulations. What favor do you offer to do for him? Voy a ayudarte con la organización de la boda. I'm going to help you with the organization or the planning of the wedding. All right. 3, you have been very cooperative recently at home. A, what explanation do you give your parents? Okay, was the explanation for the cooperation? So I could say something like, quiero que ustedes me compren una bicicleta. So I want you to buy me a bicycle. And what does your mother promise you? So I could say that the mother says, prometo compartela. Prometo compartela. Of course, I have the indirect object pronoun first and then the direct afterwards. Compartela. All right, I promise to buy it for you. 4, you accidentally hit a woman while riding your bicycle. A, what does she advise you to do? So I could say, deberías prestar más atención en la carretera, right? So you should pay more attention on the road. And then B, what apology do you offer? I could say, lo siento, señora. Espero que esté bien. So I hope that you are okay or you're fine, right? Because after all, I would have hit her, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that it was a serious she sustained serious injuries, but still gotta make sure she's all right. Right? You have a good project for homework but have not turned up for the meeting. A, what do you say when your classmate calls? I said, lo siento, pero el autobús llegó tarde. So I'm sorry, but the bus arrived late. And what angry response does he or she make? So you have to construct a response that conveys anger, right? So B, what angry response does he or she make? Estoy harto de tus excusas. So that's a very good expression. Estar harto or harta if it's female. De algo would be to be fed up of something, all right? So estoy harto de tus excusas. I'm fed up of your excuses. Or fed up with your excuses. Hold on. No, fed up of your excuses, I would say. Mm. Yeah, fed up of. Prepositions can be funny. All right, let's continue. So now we're going to go on to read the reading passages, and I have two. All right. So let's see. So the passage entitled Music. Más y más se ve que en las escuelas preescolares se ofrecen clases de música. Esto se debe al papel que juega en el desarrollo de la inteligencia del estudiante. Aún mucho antes del preescolar, hay investigaciones que demuestran que desde el útero hay un efecto enorme en el progreso cerebral del feto. Lo que sí han experimentado es que el niño que tiene contacto con la música tiene mejores relaciones con otros críos. También tiene mejor comunicación con sus padres. Indudablemente, desde esta primera etapa, empieza a apreciar los ritmos de la música, mostrando confianza, mejores habilidades comunicativas y aumento de autoestima. Es cierto que no se puede decir que a través de la música el niño será un Einstein, pero claro, él crecerá apreciando la riqueza de una melodía. That's the first reading. All right. Second one. All right. The Olympic Games. Los Juegos Olímpicos son eventos deportivos multidisciplinarios en los que participan atletas de diversas partes del mundo. Ellos han dedicado toda su vida en preparación para este momento. Existen dos tipos de Juegos Olímpicos: los Juegos Olímpicos de verano y los Juegos Olímpicos de invierno, que se realizan cada 4 años. El símbolo olímpico consiste en 5 anillos que representan los 5 continentes del mundo. Están entrelazados para simbolizar la amistad deportiva de todos los países. Los Juegos Olímpicos despiertan en los observadores una pasión incomparable a ningún otro evento. También existe la esperanza de que el ejemplo de sana competencia, compañerismo y juego limpio sean incentivos para que los observadores tomen la decisión de practicar alguna disciplina deportiva y mejorar de manera muy significativa su calidad de vida. That's the end of the second. So now we're going to look at the guided conversation. So what you see on screen would be the 6 areas from which you can be tested, right? So I'm going to, of course, go through them all, but what we are going to do is that we are going to look at 4 questions, 4 potential questions that could come from each section. And of course, I'm going to show you, potential responses, all right? Of course, there's no way of knowing what questions they're going to ask. There's no way of knowing what questions they're going to ask you, right? But you need to be prepared. So you need to prepare all topics, right? And that involves familiarizing yourself with the relevant vocabulary and practice questions like we are going to do today. So, of course, we're going to start with home and family. ¿Quién prepara las comidas para tu familia? So who prepares the meals for your family? That's a simple question. You could say, mi madre prepara las comidas para mi familia. If you want to say that you do it, you could say, preparo las comidas para mi familia. I prepare meals for my family, right? Simple. ¿Qué hace tu familia el fin de semana? So what does your family do on the weekend? El fin de semana, mi familia va a la playa y visita a sus amigos. So on the weekend, my family goes to the beach and visits their friends. A tu padre, ¿qué le gusta hacer en su tiempo libre? So what does your father like to do in his spare time or his free time? A mi padre le gusta leer el periódico y mirar la televisión, right? So my father likes to read the newspaper and watch television. Right. I would say mention 2 activities. Although they did not specify how many activities to mention, I would mention 2. At least 2. All right. ¿Vives en una casa o en un apartamento? ¿Cómo es? So do you live in a house or an apartment? How is it? So if you're asked ¿cómo es?, that's asking for a description because the verb ser is used for descriptions. All right. So vivo en una casa es de 2 pisos, right? It is a 2-story. Y roja. It is 2-story and red. Once again, at least 2 things. 2-story and red. All right, so those are 4 potential questions from the home and family section. Now we move on to school and career. So describe tu uniforme. Describe your uniform. And you could be as detailed as possible. All right, so la camisa es blanca, and of course this will vary depending on your school. La camisa es blanca y de manga corta. So that means the shirt is white and short-sleeved. El cinturón es negro y los pantalones son largos y grises. So the belt is black and the pants are long and gray. Los zapatos y los calcetines son negros. The shoes and socks are black. So based on my description of the uniform, I am sure that you can picture what it would look like. From head to toe. All right. ¿Te gusta esta escuela? ¿Por qué? So do you like this school and why? So, sí, me gusta esta escuela porque los profesores son amables. Yes, I like this school because the teachers are friendly. Yeah, a simple reason like that would suffice, right? As long as it makes sense, of course. But that would suffice. ¿Cuál es tu asignatura favorita? Favorita? ¿Por qué? So what's your favorite subject? And of course, why? Mi asignatura, or you could also say materia favorita es español porque quiero ser traductor. Simple. My favorite subject is Spanish because I want to be a translator. And you know, of course, you don't use the article here, right? With professions, but at least not in this context. Now, ¿qué hace el director cuando los alumnos se comportan mal? What does the principal do when students behave badly? Very interesting question because there are a variety of ways you could answer this. And of course, it would depend on the severity of the infraction or the offense. So I just say something simple like el director suspende a esos alumnos. So the principal suspends those students. You're behaving badly, let's just assume you're doing something that is outrageous. So el director suspende a esos alumnos. Like I said, you don't need to get too technical, right? So you don't have to sit down and think about all the different infractions and different levels of punishment. Just pick one and you're good to go. This one might be for extreme bad behavior, but you don't have to get technical with it. So sports and recreation. ¿Cuál es tu deporte favorito? And what is your favorite sport? Mi deporte favorito is football. And of course, I avoid the follow-up by telling you why it's my favorite sport. Porque está lleno de sorpresas. My favorite sport is football because it is full of surprises. You could disagree with that. ¿Cuáles son los beneficios de involucrarse en los deportes? Bueno, uno puede aprender la importancia del trabajo en equipo y mantenerse en buena forma. Once again, two benefits. You don't have to give a whole list, but just two benefits. So one can learn the importance of teamwork and stay in good shape. Of course, not all sports are team sports, but there are quite a few team sports that exist, right? Okay. ¿Quién es tu deportista favorito? ¿Por qué admiras a esta persona? So who's your favorite athlete? And of course, why do you admire this person? So mi deportista favorito es Lionel Messi. Lo admiro porque ha ganado todos los premios en fútbol. My favorite athlete is Lionel Messi. I admire him because he has won all the prizes in football. Yep. Guy has reached the pinnacle in football. He's won everything. Okay. And of course, sports and recreation. We can't exclude recreation as well. So, ¿tocas un instrumento musical? ¿Cuál? Do you play a musical instrument? And of course, which? Sí, toco el piano. So you could replace piano with any other musical instrument. Could say toco el toco, pardon. Guitar is feminine. So, sí, toco el, I say it again. Sí, toco la guitarra. Right. So if you want to say I play the guitar, you would say that. Sí, toco la visitar. All right, daily routine. Describe un día típico tuyo. Describe a typical day of yours. So in a question like this, you can utilize the reflexive verbs to talk about the routine, like waking up, bathing, having a shower, etc. Right? So here we go. Me despierto a las 6, me baño, desayuno y me voy de la casa. Llego a la escuela a las 7. Después de la escuela, regreso a casa y completo mis tareas. Me acuesto a las 10. So I wake up at 6 o'clock. I take a shower, eat breakfast, and leave home. I arrive to school at 7 o'clock. After school, I return home and complete my homework. And of course, my day ends when I go to bed at 10 o'clock. ¿Cómo ayudas en casa? How do you help out at home? So this is asking obviously for chores. So what chores do you partake in? So I said lavo los platos y saco la basura. I wash the dishes and take out the garbage. And you could also use the verb fregar, right? And when it comes to washing dishes. All right. ¿Cómo vas a la escuela? How do you get to school? So this is asking for your means of transport. Voy a la escuela por coche. I go to school by car. All right. ¿Qué haces los fines de semana? What do you do on weekends? Keep it simple. Los fines de semana, voy al cine con mis amigos. On weekends, I go to the cinema with my friends. Yep, simple. Don't really, I know previously I told you to give at least 2, but that's just to be on the safe side. But this would suffice. What do you do on weekends? I go to the cinema with my friends. Once it's expressed well, you will get full credit, right? Because I literally could go to the cinema both days. So, I mean, or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you know what I mean? So, not that serious. Shopping. ¿Quién hace las compras en tu familia? Who does the shopping in your family? Mi madre hace las compras en mi familia. My mother does the shopping in my family. If you want to add on a reason, you could say, porque a ella le gusta gastar dinero. Something like that. She likes to spend money. Something like that. A ella le gusta gastar dinero. Nombre 6 cosas que uno puede comprar en un supermercado. So name 6 things that you can purchase in a supermarket. So of course, any 6 things. I said leche, huevos, bebidas, queso, helado, y mantequilla. So milk, eggs, drinks, cheese, ice cream, and butter. Any 6 things. And of course, they have to make sense. ¿Con qué pagan tus padres cuando van de compras? What do your parents pay with when they go shopping? So, right, so you need to know about the different payment methods. So the most, well, let me not say the most common, but of course, cash is the first thing you would think about. So you don't say pagan con dinero, you would say pagan en efectivo. That's what you would say they pay. That's how you would express they pay with cash or in cash, right? If you want to say they use a credit card, you could say pagan con su tarjeta de crédito, right? They pay with their credit card. But I said pagan en efectivo. And next question, ¿vives cerca de una tienda? Do you live close to a store? Sí. De hecho, vivo cerca de una panadería, right? Yes, in fact, I live close to a bakery. So you don't just say yes, but you specify which store you live close to, right? All right, travel. ¿Te gusta viajar? Do you like to travel? Sí. And then, of course, give a reason. Porque me gusta conocer a nuevas personas. Yes, because I like to meet new persons. ¿Has visitado un país de habla hispana? ¿Cuál? So have you visited a Spanish-speaking country? And of course, which? Sí, he visitado Puerto Rico y Venezuela. So yes, I have visited Puerto Rico and Venezuela. And like I said, no one cares if that's true, right? Once it's expressed, well, ¿qué documentos se necesitan normalmente para viajar? What documents are normally needed to travel? Para viajar, un pasaporte y un billete de avión son necesarios. So in order to travel, a passport and a plane ticket are necessary. Simple. Those are two important documents, passport and plane ticket. ¿Prefieres viajar por avión o por barco? ¿Por qué? Do you prefer to travel by plane or by boat? And why? Prefiero viajar por barco porque tengo miedo a las alturas. So I prefer to travel by boat because I have a fear of heights. Totally logical, totally sensible, right? All right. So this brings us to the end of this presentation. I trust that it was helpful. Gracias por ver como siempre y nos vemos.